Hey, hey, hey. Welcome to the Global Grief Conference. I am so excited to be starting this whole shenanigans for everyone. Grief is a huge topic. It's been a major part of my life for quite a while. I mean, I think everyone goes through grief at some point in time. Some grief is different than others, but it's still grief. Today, I want to talk to you about 7 ways to find solid ground in the midst of a sudden loss. So, back in 2016, I was building my business. I'm an online entrepreneur. And in 2016, I wasn't making the money that I wanted to building my online business. So, I decided to take another job. I began working in the construction world. So I was laying pavers and building retaining walls. Very strenuous job, very taxing physically. And in 2016, I was on my way home from work and I got a phone call. They didn't know what happened. My daughter had the police were knocking at the door and they didn't know what had happened. Or my son didn't know what happened. And that started us on the quest that of healing emotionally and physically from grief. So when we got that phone call, we had lost our 19-year-old daughter. She was my stepdaughter, uh, but I had been with her father now for 7 years, 9 years at this point in time, and I had invested a lot of time and energy and blood and sweat and tears into this family, into this community that I wanted, that I loved. We had a blended family. It was my husband and myself, and, between us, we had 5 children, and when I met her, she was 7 years old. And we connected. Her and I, we connected. And I had never been the recipient of dating anyone with children. I hadn't. I had always been the one with children. So for me, I did not want that, the Disney stigmatisms where they have the evil stepmom is so mean and cruel to these children, and then these children grow up and they don't like their stepmom and blah, blah, blah. I didn't want that. So I made a very big point, poignant point to make sure that these children were loved by me just as much as they loved my own children, because essentially they were mine. And so when we got that call in 16, it rocked our world.
you always think this can't happen to me. This always happens to someone else. This is always someone else. But when it happens to you, it rocks your world. And so in 2016, I found myself, we all found ourselves just staring blankly into the nothingness, what I call the nothingness, and not really doing much. I remember sitting on the back patio and I was just sitting there, sitting in the chair, staring out into the backyard, and I had no thoughts. I had no emotions. I had no feelings because I was in shock. How can this be happening? How can this be happening to us? Were my thoughts, my initial thoughts. And not that I wanted this to happen to anyone else. I just couldn't believe that this was happening to me, to us, to our family. And so I was sitting there and I was doing literally nothing. And I had been for hours. And it wasn't until my husband, oh, and I get teary, sorry. Um, and my husband came out, he's like, babe, we have to do something. And I'm like, yep, sure, absolutely, we do. And if it would have been left to me, I would have just still been sitting there thinking about what we needed to do. Like, how do we fix this situation? There's no fixing this situation. The situation is the situation. But in my mind, I was like, how do I move on? What do I do? Like, where do I go? Who do I turn to? And these were the questions that we were pondering. It's like, okay, we weren't necessarily nestled into a church, and so we weren't very religious in that respect. We weren't too fond of going to see a psychologist. So we were really limiting our options at this point in time. And all of a sudden, a couple days go by from this, and then my husband calls me and he's like, I've been on YouTube and I want you to listen to this. I'm like, okay, sure, whatever. And I kind of brushed it off, but then I started listening to what he sent me. And it made so much sense. He had sent me near death experiences. So while we weren't religious, we were definitely spiritual. And so he sent me these near death experiences about people talking about their experience. They had flatlined or whatever you want to call it. They had died on the table, but yet they still heard everything around them. They still were able to hear things and see things and know things that they should have never been able to see, hear, or know. And so that really piqued my interest. So I started listening to more and I started listening to more. And I decided that if I'm going through this, if we're going through this, if our family is going through this, other families must be dealing with this as well. Like, where do you turn to? What do you do? Who do you like? All of these questions that happen when you lose a loved one. And so I decided I'm an online entrepreneur. I'm going to go and build a course. I'm going to teach people. I'm going to help people. I'm going to go through all these things. Well, I still have that notebook that I wrote that whole course down, but I never published it. I was too scared. I didn't get out of my comfort zone to go and publish it. So it sat there. So I continued to build in my business. I continued to fail my way to success after success after success because I still had this burning passion to help people that were going through this grief, this horrible, horrible grief that they were now was a part of their life. And so I just kept plugging away. I never brought it to fruition, but I thought about it all the time, but I never pulled it up. Well, then last year in 2021, in October, my husband and I, we were residing our house and, with the whole pandemic and stuff, getting construction materials was super hard. So we had to drive to go get our siding for our house because they didn't have it around us locally. So it was a 5-hour drive one way. And we thought, maybe we'll take one of the grandkids with us because our son and daughter-in-law and their 4 girls were staying with us. They were closing on their house and stuff. And so they just needed a place to go for a little bit of time. So they were staying with us. We got up that morning, um, and my husband was making pancakes with the girls and stuff like that before we left. We thought, "Oh, we'll be back later tonight. Maybe we should take one with." Nah, they're not gonna wanna sit in the vehicle for 5 hours, 10 hours total, 11 hours, the whole trip, whatever. So we didn't. So we took off that morning and we get almost to our destination, we get the phone call, and something had happened to, one of our granddaughters. And then we get the next phone call. She didn't make it. Our 4-year-old granddaughter is now gone. We don't have her anymore. And so then sorry. And so then I knew I had to start working on the grief stuff because this is where it's like now you're compounding it. You have another one and another one and another one. And everything in life that knocks you down is a form of grief. So whether you don't get the job, whether you break up and have a horrible relationship, whether you get turned down for promotion, whatever it is that causes like a reaction within you, like a bad reaction within you, is grief. And it just seemed to be compounding through the years. And so I decided to really dive deep into my grief, into healing it, into helping others. And am I fully healed? No. Is anyone fully healed? Absolutely not. But not the problem, but the solution is to keep going, keep moving, keep progressing, getting 1% better every day. That is the true progression of healing, or the true not progression, I'm sorry. The true nature of healing is you just want to get better. You just want to get a little bit better every day, because nothing happens, like Rome wasn't built in a day. Your business doesn't get built in a day. Your life isn't built in a day. It takes time. And time will also help you with the healing process as well. But you have to take the steps to do it. So I had to dive in and take the steps to do it. If I wasn't going to go see a psychologist, and I wasn't going to go find respite at a church, and I wasn't going to do these other things, I had to figure something else out. So I had sank in after doing all the NDEs and listening to the NDEs, and really just getting in tune with my spiritual self and talking with my husband and building my community and different things like that. I came up with the 7 ways to find solid ground in the midst of a sudden loss. Now, these 7 ways are not, when you're immediately going through a loss, nothing makes sense. Absolutely nothing. And I don't know, it's not meant to, I guess, because you're trying to make sense of a senseless situation and nothing makes sense at that point in time. But when the time is right, when you're searching, when you're ready for that healing, when you're ready for the next steps in your life to be able to move on, not to move on, but not to move on from your loved one, but to move on from that moment. Because in that moment, when you're stuck in that grief, you're just literally sitting there spinning your wheels. You're sitting there stuck in time. And these 7 steps will help you move past that moment, that stuckness in time, what I call the nothingness, because at that point, nothing matters. You're not thinking of anything, you're not feeling anything, you're not doing anything. And so when I came up with these 7 ways to find solid ground in the midst of a sudden loss, they're very simple. They're very able to put into practice right away. So the number one is emotions. A lot of people have issues with the emotions. Like if I bust out crying, like I started crying earlier, or I teared up. I didn't start crying, but I teared up earlier. Those are emotions that will come out at any point in time. In any situation, the wind could blow the right way and I can bust out crying, and that's okay. You have to understand that these emotions are normal and they're natural, and to just let them happen. If you don't let them happen, you start bottling them up inside. When you start bottling them up inside, it starts affecting your system. And you keep trying to hold it in and hold it in. It's almost like a water balloon filling up with water, and it keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and eventually it's going to explode. And I apologize for having my things on. I apologize. Um, but eventually it's going to explode. And that's the same thing that will happen with your emotions. Eventually, you're going to accumulate so many emotions within you, and they're gonna keep expanding, expanding, and expanding, and eventually it's gonna explode. And then it's gonna happen wherever you're at, whomever you're with, and the least best place to happen is when it will happen. Um, so make sure that you're honoring your emotions, make sure that you're getting your emotions out, make sure that they're a happy, healthy way, and process those emotions. Let them happen. Number 2, 2. This one is a big one for me. I don't being an online entrepreneur, you don't get out as much as you should, because you're in your office, you're in your space here, you're behind your computer, you're plugging out work and stuff all the time, and so you don't take the time, but you need to move your body. You need to go for a walk, or you need to go take some stretch classes or yoga classes, or go for a bike ride, or whatever type of physical fitness that will help you, that fits within your lifestyle. You might be a runner. Maybe when something tragic happened, you stopped running. Maybe you need to go back to running. Whatever it is, if you're a mountain climber, if you're whatever physical fitness means to you, whether that's going for a walk, because that's my physical fitness, is going for a walk. We live on a very hilly road, and it makes sense for me to just go for a walk. It gives me a great time to think, a great time to manage my emotions, to manage and process the thoughts that keep running through my head. So, walking for me is essential. Number 3, find a focus. Sometimes when we're caught in the midst of all of this chaos, in the midst of all of this grief, in the midst of everything, we lose track of things. We Nothing seems to matter. Nothing seems to You just feel blah. And so it takes a little bit of effort. It takes a little bit of trying, a little bit of thinking about things to find a focus. Maybe it's starting a nonprofit. Maybe the tragedy that happened to you is something so massive that you want to start a nonprofit for. And for that, kudos to you. That's a massive undertaking, but it will focus your attention. Not that you're trying to not process the emotions, but you're just trying to find an outlet for all that energy that will come, for all those emotions that you have. You can put them into a nonprofit, or starting a business, or have a hobby, or whatever it is. You can focus all that stuff into it. 4, when loss happens, man, it's a it's a doozy, but you also don't sleep like you should, because in the middle of the night, that's when the quiet sets in, is when the thoughts start happening. When the quiet sets in is when your mind goes crazy. It starts thinking of everything that you thought you coulda, shoulda, woulda, but didn't do, or all these other things, all the memories, all the emotions, everything. So when that happens, I go take a nap if I can. Sometimes you can't, but I know that there's 3 things that you have to survive in life. One is food, one is water, and one is sleep, rest. Your body has to have rest to survive. You cannot go through life with no sleep. It's also when your body repairs itself. And so when you take a nap, when you get some sleep in, and sleep is very, very difficult when it first happens. So whenever you can get a nap in, I'm on it. Or whenever I can get a nap in, I'm on it. So don't forget naps. 5. This should be so I have a big story on this one. When when I met my husband in 2005, my family we were like vagabonds. We traveled the US my entire life. And I didn't like I don't have a childhood home. I can't tell you like any of the childhood stories like a lot of people can that they grew up down the road from their grandparents or they had a best friend since kindergarten. They have, all these things. I don't have any of that. We moved around my entire childhood, so I didn't build so number 5 is building your community. I didn't have that community. The community that I had was my family. That was it. And there was 4 of us in my family, and that was the community that I had. And so when I met my husband, I had no idea how to build a community. I had no idea what that even meant. And so as I was married to him and having to go through these steps of building a community, and if you're not understanding what I'm talking about, so when when I was growing up, the vagabond lifestyle, I could pick up and move. Like I got really, really good with being able to pack up my house in the middle of the night and being able to be gone within 24 hours, leaving non-essentials behind, taking only what I needed, absolutely needed, and this was with 2 children, and I'd be able to pack up and leave. So it didn't matter to me. The people around me didn't matter to me. I could tell someone off, and it didn't matter to me because I was leaving, and I knew I could leave. Well, I met my husband, and I didn't have those options anymore. I had to figure out how to survive in this community, how to build a community, how to not have everyone hate me because I'm a careless butt face. So, building that community took me a long time to be able to figure that piece of that component out, that piece of the puzzle for me, um, because I wasn't raised with it. I didn't know how to do it. So, build your community now. Um, build it strong, like the people that you can count on, the people that you can run to, the people that you can connect with. Do it, but make sure that as you're looking for these people in your community, that you're being a good community citizen yourself. And that was the piece for me that I wasn't. Like there was plenty of people around me that would have helped me at any point in time in my life, but I was not a good community citizen at that time. Like I was not. It took me years of trying, of actually wanting to be a good person, a good citizen, a good community builder as well, to be able to provide that for the others in my community so it was reciprocal. It wasn't a one-way street. 6, talk about them. Sometimes it's hard. Like people come up to you and they don't want to trigger your emotions because they can't handle it. They feel like you don't want to talk about them because it's painful for you. But in reality, for me, I found that when I talk about my loved ones, when I talk about my daughter and my granddaughter, that it brings them to life again. It brings them, I get to hear new stories. I get to hear new observations. I get to see them through someone else's eyes. So for me, I absolutely love it when people talk about them. So talk about them to others. And they generally, uh, are happy to hear about your loved one. They're happy to hear these stories. They're happy to hear these happy memories or these trying memories that you had with them. They're happy to hear them. And last but not least, one of my favorites is create a new tradition. So um, every year since my daughter has passed, I buy special Christmas ornaments for the kids. To hang on their trees because they're all getting older, and this way they'll have something to decorate their tree. So we make it special. It has her name on it. It's usually with purple because purple and black were her favorite colors, but it always generally has purple with it. It has the year and her name and different things like that. And so it is special specifically to her. I think I have a couple here. Yep, here's one. This one was from 2016. This was the year that she had passed, and so for her, we do the wings. Now for my granddaughter that just passed, we have, we buy her more kid ones, and so she got the marshmallow, unicorn, and so I always put the year, and I always put the date on there. Sorry, I don't know where this camera's at. And so every year we get a new one. But this isn't the only tradition that we start. So in December we do I like Christmas. I don't know if you guys can tell that. But every Christmas we started, well, 2 years ago, we started doing gingerbread gingerbread house building things with the grandkids. And so all of our kids come over, our grandkids come over, and we have just all of this candy and stuff for the kids to decorate these gingerbread houses. And it lasts for a couple hours, and they have so much fun, and they're so proud of their work when they're done. And so one year my granddaughter was at it, and then this last one she was not. So we had to, it was a bittersweet time. Yes, there's a lot of emotions. Yes, there's a few tears. There's a few, remembrances and different things like that. But overall, it helps the little ones to not be stuck in the past, because if you don't create any new traditions, you're essentially not living, you're not growing, you're not being, you're not doing. And so creating those traditions also helps the little ones process the stuff as well, to keep moving, to keep doing, and to keep growing. So, yeah, I hope that this helped you in some small way to be able to process your grief a little bit, or to at least take steps to move through the grief. Because it should never be a stopping point. It should only be a starting point. And as you process this grief, just know and understand that this is your grief. It's yours. It's unique to you as your thumbprint is, as your DNA is. It's completely unique to you, and only you will be able to be able to know what is right for you, and to know what processes that feel in alignment with where you want to go and where you're at this moment. So don't get into the box of, "Oh my gosh, I need to do it this way. I have to do step 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and 6, and 7, and they have to be completely in alignment, and there's only a certain amount of time for each one," because that just doesn't happen. Oh, I got comments. Hold on. Um, Nadia, good morning. Jenny, good morning. You're very welcome. Carla says, hands-on activities, rituals, and traditions are a beautiful way to help all people, especially kids, process of grief. Absolutely. It absolutely is. And I think that when you ignore the children, that's when they have the biggest problem, is processing the grief, because they're feeling it too. Whether they're showing it or not, they're feeling it. And if you give them a healthy way to process it, then it helps them along the way. As absolutely. Um, so I have 3 more segments coming up. At midnight, I'm at the top of the hour every day. So midnight tonight, I'll be on again, Mountain Time. Midnight tomorrow night, I'll be on again, Mountain Time. And then midnight on Sunday night, I'll be on again. That'd be Monday morning. Gosh, I get so confused with that. But I have 3 more topics, 3 more subjects. I won't be talking about the same one. Because I've also published a few books. I've got a couple things in the works, and I wanna help you guys process your grief as much as possible. If you have any more questions, I will answer them throughout the whole conference if I'm able to. I don't know if I'm able to, but if I'm able to, I will process them throughout the conference, and I look forward to seeing all the presentations and getting all the knowledge and stuff that all the other speakers have. There's an amazing lineup, so make sure that you stay tuned. Make sure that you have your notepads out. Make sure that you're taking notes. Make sure that you are being active listening throughout the whole conference, and I wish you guys all success, and I will see you in my next segment.